abdul-alim. Alhamdulillah, this is one day post-election, 2016. So we'll deal with our first question. Inshallah, if there's any questions.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
We all know that the election just took place yesterday, and most Americans are looking at, and even Muslims are looking at the election from the American perspective.
Right.
So the question I have to ask you is, how should we look at it as it relates to the Islamic world?
Yes, okay. All right. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Just the other day, I was going through, this is the back page of Saboteurs, and it had a few ayats that just hadn't paid attention to before. We pay attention to them all the time, but in a different way. I'd like to, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Never did we destroy a population that had not a term decreed and assigned beforehand. Neither can a people anticipate its term nor delay it. Ma tasbiqu from As-Sabiqun. Men umatin ajallaha wa ma yastakiruna. Neither can a people anticipate a term, nor can they delay it. So, I have another ayat. I just wanted to set the stage that during the historical process, there is a very definite historical process going on in the Quran. When we think about elections and selections, when we think about the Bush, when Bush stole the election of 2000, it's very clear, the hanging chads and all that down in Florida. Okay, it was clear that they could manipulate the elections. Clearly, we already knew it, but we didn't know for sure. And that means they always have a technique for manipulating the elections. Those that have enough power can have a big influence on the elections. And after these machines start kicking in, where you don't always have to count the vote and got your signature or something like that, we know that it's been heavily manipulated. So we came to certain conclusions by the last Bush election, when Kerry should have automatically won that, because George Bush had went to war in Afghanistan, he had went to war in Iraq, and they both looked treacherous. They looked bad. So the 2004 election, he should have lost hands down. But he didn't. They had the little swift boat stuff. They had a lot of little knick-knack here and there. But clearly it was another election stealing. In '92, how would Bill Clinton get in against the CIA champion, you know? Well, now we don't say that the sucking man Perot, he got in there third party, and he took a large slice of votes from the other guy, from George Bush. The next go round, Ralph Nader took some. Okay, they had people in this time, third party people, but they wasn't. So they didn't got that managed right now. As long as you don't get in and get too much publicity. So the rise and fall of nations are already scripted by Allah. The public get hooked up on the, like it is, neither can people anticipate its term nor delay it. People want to anticipate, they want to forecast, the elections and all of that. They want to handicap it. Well, nowadays, since they control the elections, you don't know what the outcome is going to be. So there's no sense of using objective reality and analysis to say, well, so-and-so's going to win. Then we have to realize, though, that Allah got their number, and when it's time for them to go, they're going to go, and they're going to help themselves go. They ain't going to delay nothing. They're not going to put it off. These elections are clear instigations of decline, that they are in the process of decline, and all they can do is accelerate or instigate their own decline. So that's why I wanted to read it. Never did we destroy a population that had not a term decreed and assigned beforehand. So even if we're Muslim, if we're not on our job, we can get hooked up in those things too. But in recent decades, it's been a good feeling because we know that their term is already hooked up and they're following the historical pattern. And everything they do smells and spells decline, instability. There's another ayat here. Then the blast overtook them with justice, and we made them as rubbish of dead leaves floating on a stream of time. So away with the people who do wrong. Now, I've read this at least 100 times, but when you read it in context, it's a good God Almighty, how did I miss that? Then we raised after them other generations. No people can hasten their term, nor can they delay it. That's very clear. We got one more, and we'll get into the subject. We did test those before them, and Allah will certainly know those who are true from those who are false. Do those who practice evil think that they will get the better of us? Evil is their judgment. Now, what I like about this is these ayats, in another translation, in the concordance, it says, no nation outstrips its term, nor do they put it back. So outstrip is from Sabiq. All of these ayats come from the root word Sabiqun. And then the last two that outstrip him, speech. No nation outstrips its term, nor can they put it back. And the last one, or do they reckon those who do evil deeds that they will outstrip us? This is the one I wanted to read for us. Because sometimes we'll get the idea with all the shenanigans going on that they're going to beat us, they're going to win, you know what I mean? And so we're of the long range type. In the eternal, they can't win. In the long range, they can't win. I believe we're a fortunate generation, different from colonial times and other times and slavery time for us here in America. That was a bad time. People had to exercise maximum patience because of what Allah has said in other ayats, whether I show you in this lifetime or I postpone it, for a time. My decree is solid and constant, on and on. This one right here has a footnote. If the enemies of truth imagine that they will be first by destroying the truth before it takes root, they are sadly at fault. For their own persecution may help to plant Allah's truth more firmly in men's heart. And Yusuf Ali was deep, but we just wasn't paying attention. It wasn't the time. In this historical process, they snatched the thing from Gore. Okay, Gore probably wouldn't have went to war. Most people would rather not that Gore, that we go to war and all those people die and all those buildings are destroyed, people's lives and turmoil, and poor Afghanistan had already suffered 30 years by then, over 20 years by then. So now, here they come again. Now, George Bush come through with Iraq in 91, and it was just a trail of death. But he weakened Saddam, and it raised Iran. The Taliban had been a thorn. When I was in Pakistan, I think it was 98. In Pakistan, we got the news hot off the presses because we were right there close by. In Mazar Sharif in Afghanistan, the Taliban captured, this is a Shia area, they captured the intersection, and there was 14 people there. They killed 12 of the diplomats, and 2 of them got away. 2 that got away got back to Iran, and of course you can imagine how upset the people of Iran was. So they sent troops along the Iranian border with Afghanistan, and they had 235,000 troops. They was going to invade. Of course they would have won. The Rahbar says, no, we're not going to let people drag us into what would have turned into a Sunni Shia. This is the way it would have read. Saudi would have played it like that. Okay. So they pulled back. 2-3 years later, the U.S. come and knocked Taliban and knocked Saddam for Iran. This is one of the things that people wasn't paying attention to. Trump said, they put the Iranians in a position of power and hegemony in the Persian Gulf. Well, it's the Persian Gulf. They should have power. It's not the American Gulf. But anyway, the way this footnote reads, if the enemies of truth imagine that they will be first by destroying truth before it takes root. This is important because they have government agents throughout our communities and neighborhoods. And one thing that was true about one of our speakers who speaks in the street a lot, he didn't think we would pick it up the way we did. But he said they monitor all of you, and they make a judgment on leadership before you do. And they exit them, misguide them, and that's the system been working like that. That's why we very seldom get leaders that are really on our side. Because they're always sidetracking the people who have potential for leadership. And if they allow them leadership, like we talk about the Roy Wilkinses and, all those people, Uncle Roy used to call them, Malcolm used to call them. Those are people on the black circuit, just like the Negroes that we know right now are on the Muslim circuit. Acceptable. So As-Sabiq means to get out in front and to cut off leadership. Before, these elections, all the elections, have been stage managed, right? To anticipate where things are going, but to put out their platform and their program. And they take the world where they want to go. The only thing is, all the last generations, they've always been taking the people toward us, toward Islam. Reagan did it, right? Reagan did it. Reagan, I don't know what the deal was with him and the Iranians, you know what I mean, on that October surprise, holding up the Iranians. That started all of this stuff that's going on now. This is the first Islamic revolution in modern times. It's a big deal. And for them, it was a super big deal and a big surprise. They had their mind, like we did, focused on Pakistan, Jamaat Islami, Maulana Maududi, in Egypt, Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Nobody was thinking about Iran. It just wasn't in the books. Everything that's happening right now today, the root is from there. And for them trying to cut off the revolution with the wars, with this and with that, actually has built it up. And they did it. So, that's why it says, by destroying the truth, they are sadly at fault. For their own persecution may help to plant Allah's truth more firmly in men's hearts. I know with the people we knew, you know, this Islam has caught hold, and it's caught hold good. And the enemy is the one that helps. Outstrip, to get out of ahead, I want to just show a few outlines. What is this? Proactive Preemptive Operations Group. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that. This is from an article in the LA Times in 2002. It's just what it says it is. U.S. Secret Counterintelligence Group, the Proactive Preemptive Operations Group emerged from the report of the Defense Science Board, Pentagon Advisory Group, and found its way into daylight. Let me get to be a little part that will give you an idea. The covert, say, U.S. SEALs investigated cache of munitions in a cave in the region of eastern Afghanistan. The covert side of the military special operations forces resides in a sub-command known as the Joint Special Operation Command based at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. It reportedly has command of Special Forces Operational Detachment of the Delta Force and a secretive counter-intelligence move. In fact, I'm skipping. This approach, so it's insulated from the pressures of the eye of the public. But in fact, the word preemptive is the name given a proposed new counterterrorism organization. The Proactive Preemptive Operation Group would be composed of about 100 people with experience in covert activities, intelligence gathering, computer work, attacks, and other highly special skills. The group would be overseen by the White House Deputy National Security Advisor for combating terrorism. Provoking actions. Faced with the massive opposition to this war, to their war plans, Bush and his team may again be planning some terrorist act to provoke massive revulsion and whip a skeptical and reluctant world into supporting wars against Iraq and other targets. So this is basically the group. It gets more detailed, but it's called Proactive Preemptive Group. And their idea is what comes in the second article here, fabricating the enemy. Okay, I'll just try to find a little, there's no evidence that the Pentagon or CIA played a direct role in recent terrorist attacks, is what they're saying. The latter were undertaken by organizations or cells of these organizations. Cells of these Pentagon, CIA operations. This is what the white folks is, which operate quite independently with a certain degree of autonomy. This independence is in the very nature of a covert intelligence operation. The intelligence asset is not in direct contact with its covert sponsors. It is not necessarily cognizant of the role it plays on behalf of the intelligence sponsors. That means all of Daesh and every guy in ISIL is not necessarily cognizant of the fact that he's a stooge for them.
Right.
But the main operators, they know where the money comes from. They know the purpose is to cause death and destruction amongst Muslims. Let's see, we'll just read a little bit and then call it a day. A recent 2000 classified outbrief drafted to guide the Pentagon calls for the creation of a so-called proactive preemptive operation group to launch secret operations aimed at stimulating reactions amongst terrorists and states possessing weapons of mass destruction. That is, for instance, prodding terrorist cells into action and exposing themselves to quick response. Attacks by U.S. forces. They create the problem and they right there to solve it. There's a lot of on this, but so proactive preemptive group, proactive preemptive operation group, fabricating the enemy. This is similar to when we look at the outer world is one thing, but let's look at our world for a minute. If you were to look at this article here, provocateur state. That's a state that provokes everybody. You remember a week or so ago, we dealt with the ayats, about our regular ayats of who is better speech, call people to Allah, work righteous deeds, says I'm a Muslim, you know what I mean? Then between who and he, equalize not bad with good, but repel evil with that which is better. Then between whom and you, hatred become a warm and fuzzy friend. It goes on and on and on. But then the ayat 36 goes on to say something that we had been paying. But the shaitan, the evil, provokes enmity, is a provocateur. All right. Now think about us for the last 3 years. Okay, just some of the simple stuff. Okay, we're having a meeting like we regularly do, and the Negro walks in with a camera, talking loud, right in the middle, for no reason. Pointing and calling me certain names like the police and, you're a snitch, you didn't do enough time in prison for the stuff you was doing. Not that the police couldn't catch me and set me up. You could see from some of the paperwork that I present, that if I did those things the way they said, I would plead insanity and beat the case. If I come from Mexico, dressed like the king of Siam or somebody, right? And I done came a couple of times, you know, same airport. And I got heroin and cocaine, which had never been arrested for any heroin or anything before. I've been around it, but I wasn't technically a dealer of heroin. I was not I was a cocaine man, smoking stuff, a little bit of everything else. But if you notice in one of the court documents, it says, well, when we took the man into the room, we hadn't patted him down. But when I go overseas, anywhere, I'd have my wife have a little pistol, just normal. You know, you're not gonna have your wife. So if they look in her purse and see a pistol, and I'm there with her, you think they're gonna take me somewhere without patting me down? That's why the lawyer said, did you pat the man? He said, I don't remember that. Well, what's the routine? Would they, just a simple question, would they take a Negro that's rolling his eyes and mad down the hallway somewhere without just patting him, you know, just down? And would the Negro be just as foolish? Because when they took us to jail, you notice that they said 6 hours later, they found some heroin and cocaine. Remember that? And it was wrapped in a receipt and a bag from the hotel that I was staying at, because you got to where you stayed, all that. Right? Okay. If I did that, I should be in jail. I would have volunteered. If I did that, I would say, hey man, my butt needs to be in jail. I did that, I come into customs with the sharpest suit on in the world, and you know, and da-da-da-da-da, coming from Masjid, with what was it, heroin and cocaine. And you followed procedure, you didn't pat me down, and there's a gun involved. And by the time we go to jail, you come back and found some more dope. And then this dope was actually, it had, you know, they take your property, your receipts and everything. This had, you know, so that is, that's worse than proactive, preemptive. That is insanity, right? So what if they come in? Who have you ever heard, or where have you ever heard that the Negro can come to a masjid with guns all out, right at high noon, worse than the high noon, or OK Corral? I mean, guns is everywhere.
Plus, if somebody came there with guns, generally speaking,
Right.
and people saw them in the open,
Right.
somebody would call the police.
Yes, the police came much later, because every time this is going on, one of them you can see it on camera, because Mukhtar is taking on camera. I'm telling my son, stand down. I do this all the time. It ain't nothing. They're just talking. They put it up on video. Okay, so it shows that they're trying to provoke something. And they did this for 3 years. Provoking after provoking. Everything was a major provoking. And we didn't go for it. Why? Because we not only had this, but we've been knowing that. And we have to stay focused on what we're doing. And as the ayat say, they can't hasten their time and they can't slow it down. Same thing with us. They can't divert us from our mission, unless we allow him to. Just a few more things Agent Provocateurs posing today as Oakland Liberation Front. Sounds nice. This is at the Oakland Wall Street. That was big. They have 17 sheriff's department at Oakland Wall Street. This is back in 2011. Okay. All I was doing, I got pictures of the whole thing. And I got pictures of snitches that I knew from back in the old days. Hey, what you doing? I said, oh, I'm just out here, just being out. Click, 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 and I got the pictures. I said, I know this is a snitch because this is one of my wife's brother's friends that was a snitch back then. You know, but look what it says. Agent Provocateurs posing today as Oakland Liberation Front. What do? Same thing they always do. Like Oscar Grant, all of that. People have a peaceful demonstration. They won hands down. Everybody knows the police shot the poor man. He's on the ground, and everybody's mad at the police. They send people like, you would be shocked, some of the Negroes. They on the first of the 4 Wall Street, they come out at Oscar Grant's, turning over a few cars, burning stuff. This is the communists, you know. And all of a sudden, everything is on them. You know what I mean? Oh, these people, just like they tried to do it in Baltimore, they tried to do it down in Ferguson. In Ferguson, I saw the same Negroes on TV that was right there right here in D.C., supposed to be from New York. The point I'm making is about, let's always stay calm and relaxed and focused on what we're doing. Because we're going to always have provocations and instigations. And as far as the election goes, all they can do is continue on their path of decline. Right? To us, it looks like an acceleration because we're still looking at it in human terms. Man, they're speeding up their decline. But technically, they're not, because a lot of them wrote all of that in to, you know, like there's something to do. It says, nothing can change the qadr of Allah except dua. Okay? But a lot of them wrote in there. The brother was getting ready to go to the penitentiary for acting a fool. The people made dua, oh Allah, help this dummy, because he ain't got no sense. So Allah kept him out, kept him in the Masjid for the next 40 or 50 years. Okay? To the people, they dua changed it, but Allah wrote in the people's history that they gonna make dua. So it don't change. It's not you can't change the qadr of Allah. They look at it as a change. And the hadith is using the word that nothing can influence or change the qadr of Allah except dua. Okay? To them, their duas affected it. But Allah wrote in the whole process that they was going to make dua. So this boy, Allah gave him 70 years, and he was living bad, and he looked like he had knocked it down to 45 or 50 years. That's what the people say, man. He was dope, he ain't gonna live another 5 years. Then the people make dua. And he lived to be 90 years old, because he started eating vegetables and fruit and taking care of his children, triple grandchildren, great-great-great-grandchildren, all of that. He lived, to them, their dua changed his qadr. No. Allah had already gave him a certain time. Now, he's going to do this, and it's going to look like it's shortening his time. But brother so-and-so, sister so-and-so, them, all them going to make dua. on this certain date. See, Allah know all of that. And it's going to hook them up. This is the way we should look at all of these people, including the election. They think they're going to slick somebody. They slicking themselves. Their very behavior, as Yusuf Ali said, their very behavior from fighting against truth is going to send them right down the way to help developing and encouraging the thing that they're fighting against. So that's the way we see this election. This is how it relates to the Islamic world and it relates to us. One more thing I want to say about it. The different presidents that initiated the wars, like Bush initiated Iraq, he went back into Afghanistan. These are devastating. But see, we don't know. We look at the wars in Syria and all the people, man, in Iraq right now, and Mosul, it looks devastating. And we don't say if, but it's possible if it would have went the other way, it could have been thousands and thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people that passed away because of that. The engineering of the people into position, the engineering Iran into that leadership position is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's what we all prayed for. The stabilization of the Islamic Republic of Iran, the longevity of it, that it lasts, right? We prayed and chanted for Marbar America, death to America, and the export of the revolution. Well, if you look at Saudi Arabia's behavior, Bahrain's behavior, the Israelis' behavior, it would seem like they're accelerating their own demise. Because they might have started the war with Iraq and Iran in 1980. And Iran lost, maybe between them they lost 1 million men. That's true. But look how many were saved. Look how many were saved. The martyrdom, Allah says that your martyrdom won't go to waste. Your actions won't go to waste. We consider what happened in Iran, that martyrdom, love for martyrdom, is the key in human terms to the survival. And now, Iran is in a global position. Iran is pumping oil out of Iraq. It should pump oil out of Iraq because it gave Iraq oil when the U.S. sanctions on it and everything, and on and on and on. They're great friends. Okay? The world had them set up to be enemies. They're great friends. Arbain is coming up in another 10 days or so. Last year, it was between 25 and 30 million people. As they say, all bets is off this year. The Shia community, because of its repression, is set in line to be the leader of Islamic revival. Not the Sunni or Shia revival, but the Islamic revival, without asking, by being forced into it. Number one, people like the Rahbar know it's coming. They don't call it a gift and everything because people may not understand. But for us, it's a gift to the Islamic Republic. And they're putting in place all the levers. Syria, would you, y'all give me just 1 second, I wanna, because this question of Syria comes up all the time. We dealt with it before in Qutbah, but it might have been quickly. I mentioned this when the president of Iran was here, because people always, what's Syria? Why they, you know, why Iran supporting Syria? Okay, Saddam Hussein and Hafiz Assad was both Ba'athis. Iraq and Syria, both the Ba'ath Party. We call this Barat al-Mushrikeen. One of the names of Surah Tawbah is Barat and Tawbah. A declaration of enmity from Allah and His Messenger, those of the pagans with whom we have contracted mutual alliance. All that stuff is disavowed from now on. This is the ayat that was given to Ali. Abu Bakr led the Hajj al-Akbar, and Ali was there with the Prophet in Medina. And when this was revealed, he sent these ayats along with Ali to be read. And he read them open aloud, because this is not only Quran, but this is a clear statement. Go ye then for 4 months, backwards and forwards, and you will, as you will throughout the land. But know that you cannot frustrate Allah by your falsehood, but that Allah will cover with shame those who reject Him. An announcement from Allah and His Messenger to the people assembled on the day of the great pilgrimage, that Allah and His Messenger dissolve treaty obligations with the pagans. Finish, home folks, finish. All the treaties, don't make no difference whether it's Hudaybiyah, whether it's this, or it's all over now. You got 4 months to clean up your act. And the other stuff, you can't come here to Hajj no more naked and run around. You can come to Hajj under these guidelines. Okay. With the pagans. If then you repent, it were best for you, but if you turn away, know that you cannot frustrate Allah and proclaim a grievous penalty to those who reject faith. Now, this is the one that I was reaching at, number 4. But the treaties are not dissolved with those pagans with whom you have entered into alliance and who have not subsequently failed you in all, nor aided anyone against you. So fulfill your engagements with them to the end of their term, for Allah loves the righteous. During the war with Iran and Iraq, all the Arabs, just about everybody in the world, was against Iran. They had Egyptian pilots, they had Jordanian regulars, they had Sudanese mercenaries. Everybody was on Saddam Hussein's side. The only Arabs in that whole region that didn't attack Iran was Syria. In fact, I have a booklet from those days. So, what this ayat says, because when we was with the president of Iran a month or so ago, they were saying, hey, with Syria and this and that. I told them, I can't take it no more. I can't listen to you people. You don't do your research. This is exactly what I'm saying it in a much harsher tone than I am now. You're not doing your research. You ought to sit over there and be quiet. And then I related this ayat in brief. And it's clear. Except all treaties are dissolved, except the pagans, which they definitely are, Ba'athists, that you have a treaty and they didn't fight you and they didn't get with anybody else that was fighting. That's clearly Syria. Iran has an Islamic right to help Syria. And a responsibility. You think people sometimes remember, hey man, when nobody, you know when ain't nobody with you, and there's one person that stick with you and y'all make it through, you don't forget that person. If you run into a couple $1 million, you may call him and say, man, I got $250,000 for you just for being you. You know what I mean? Just for being you. So anyway, I'll get back to the questions for you. Are there any more questions like number 2?
You mentioned that the Muslims they also got caught up in the emotionalism of the election fervor. What's the role of the Islamic movement in its response?
To stick to our role is to do just what we always do. No matter how good it looks, stick with Quran and Sunnah. No matter how gloomy it looks, the Muslims, today, as you say, our friend is talking crazy. Well, just remember, during the Gore period, they all jumped on Gore and got with Gore, all kissing and hugging. Then Bush got in, and they all got scared, and they was all bushing to doggone Bush here, Bushers everywhere. The religious initiative, they was all, and they was calling me first for Clinton, all of them. Madeleine Albright, you gotta come. So I ain't coming down there. Don't care. I said they're gonna put LSD in your food and everything. Well, you could speak out before them. I said, if I got down there with Imam so-and-so and all that, and I started talking bad to them white folks, them niggas would jump on me. They won't jump on nobody else. They scared of cats. But they would technically jump on me for talking to them people like that. And I know they would. Then George Bush screws them. I me't use that word. They go back and forth all the time. And now, they was with Miss Hillary. And now the bum one. They just pitiful.
You're politically blind.
They blind. And you know, they think we got crystal balls all on everywhere. It's not a crystal ball, it's just reading the Quran. And we know America, leave them alone. Just, yes.
Even on the cover of the link, you had the obvious division of the Muslims, because you had Muslims for Hillary, Muslims for Trump, and you had Muslims for Bernie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I told them it was not to be I said it, but it was 81. That's exactly what I told them. I said, if you start planning anything, they're going to cause fitna amongst you. Mm. They're going to have Republican Muslims and Democratic Muslims, and I don't know what a Ralph Nader, they didn't have him then, but somebody, Jesse Jackson Muslims, it was around 84, they were getting around Shalom. Okay, they don't have confidence in the Quran. The reason they don't have confidence in it because they don't use it. They don't use it, and they don't, the stuff that jumps out at us, it don't jump out at them the same way.
Remember, not to cut you off,
yes.
Remember I was telling you about the sister in France?
Yeah.
Okay. And the sister was telling her she shouldn't wear that?
Right, the Arab sister.
Yeah.
Behind the counter.
And then the key in that conversation, she said, we didn't come here for religion and history.
Right.
we came here for trade.
Yeah.
That was their mantra or mantra
Right.
in France, and it seems to be the same mantra here.
Of course.
That's why they don't use the Quran, because they didn't come here
They
to
come
use the
here.
Quran. They didn't come here for the history of America, the history of. They came here for trade, and that's what Allah gave them.
No, to me, compared to other generations of Muslims, they're doing very well. They got Masjid, the others changed their name from Mustafa to Mike, and all of that. All the Muslims that I knew before, you a Muslim? Hey man, they got one guy. It's okay. So anyway, yes. Alhamdulillah. Let's see. How does this relate to us again? We're part of the Islamic resistance movement. Islamic resistance movement in North America is to resist all the satanic forces, Democrats or Republican. The Islamic liberation forces, us, right here, us, this is it. All part. Yeah, this is the way they get started, though. This is the way the Islamic Liberation Forces, we are a part of the National Liberation War, National Liberation Front. They always had a name. That's what we are. We liberate the people from sadness, cowardice, inferiority complexes, all the things that we said last week. The self-image psychology, inability, too tall, too short, too light, too dark. All of those things that enable us from going forward, of preventing us from living out our destiny. We have to liberate themselves. And then I'm going to go right into this war at home, number 3. That is a question, war at home. I'll just go right into war at home. I mean, this is our war. This is our home. And we're doing the best that we can to frame the battle space, the battlefronts, to get the most out of it and doing the less harm. Like all the enemies hiding amongst the citizens and all of that. So not only we don't want collateral damage or less, we want to do the most with the least and the less. The most is we want to do this whole job with a minimum of hurt, shame. That's why we be getting ready to go somewhere and we pull back from going because, hold it. No, the Quran is clear. It says, cover your brother's fault, hide your brother's fault. And then we remember that, oh man. If I go over here, because I feel like I'm in the day, okay, you can't go by your feelings. Okay. And we were revolutionaries. Like I told the brothers about South Africa, same thing applies to us. I was telling Pagan, if you go after the Muslims too heavily, you're going to isolate yourself from them. That means you are isolated. That means the government can just pop, shoot you like fish in a bowl, fish in a barrel. Okay, so it's not a Jesus approach, but it is a Quranic approach. Now, when we come out of the Quran, we have options. We have legal options. You know, in the Quran it says about the hypocrites, they're going to be in the lowest part of the fire. Then you get ayats where even the Prophet ﷺ prayed for abdul-alim. Then the ayats came down not to pray for him, but it didn't say you still have options. to deal with clear-cut hypocrites. You can slay them wherever you find them. Don't do that. You can be patient with them. You can give them nasiha. Good advice. You can do that. We have, what I'm saying is, we're not wrestling with, but we're rationally thinking and believing, which is the best way. And each person, when they're in a commanding position, each person in the future, when they make certain decisions where that decision rests with them, they have to make a decision not only with Quran, not only with Sunnah, but how they, how it relates to, you know what I mean? Time, place, and circumstance, and them. For me, it's easy to overlook what people do because I've been doing it all along. And when I didn't do it, it didn't fit. It didn't fit my personality. That's why I'm the luckiest big-time dope dealer. I was talking to my second in command, not third. I said, man, we never even beat up nobody when we was, can you imagine? He said, yeah, but we was ready. We was waiting. They wanted to, because they had that power. You want to use it like a police with a gun, been practicing for 16 years, pop, shooting holes out of the thing. You want to, let's see, I want to pop me a nigga. Yeah, I want to pop. Do I get him the first time to say, he wants to. A lot of people don't realize that there are police that I want to shoot me a nigga today. I want to. I'm looking for an opportunity. They don't believe people are like that.
Even as a firefighter, you sitting around the firehouse, and the white boys are wanting to go fight. They want somebody's house to catch on fire,
so they can put it out.
So they can go put it out.
Probably the reason that stuff didn't fit with you a long time ago, because you had something called a conscience.
Yeah, but it's your fitra. Allah give you your fitra. Yeah. When you're younger, you follow it a little bit, but when we talk about an unconscious competent, right. And later on, unconscious competent is an unconscious man. He manages right. He makes the right decision off, but he's unconscious of the process. He's just a good manager, naturally. And if you would ask him to teach a class on management, he said, what? Let me see, what's number one, what's number two? He would be dumbfounded. He'd have to go read a book on it and then go buy the book or something. A conscious competent is one that's competent, but also conscious of the process. The longer we go along, the more conscious we become of ourselves. See, struggle reveals yourself to yourself too. No, it do. You get the one. The biggest heat come down on me, I realized, they're trying to make me paranoid. I just went and got my AR-15 and walked out the door, pumping in there. Come on, get me, sucker. Because that was flight or fight. I was given fight. I'll fight. I won't run back paranoid. I ain't gonna run back and hide. I'm gonna go on and find out what's this thing. What is it? You so bad? Come on out. Let's find you. We'll see what happened. That's a gift. That to know. If you never put under enough stress, you don't know yourself. But if you put under constant, like this European do us, you know yourself, and the longer you do, the better you become. You anticipate things better, and you say, I'm not going to be provoked, because it's not my nature, and it's for them. I'm not going to do what they want. And they're the ones that help you. So war at home is our war. And we have that it's a psychological asymmetric warfare. Psychological warfare, psychological guerrilla warfare. Napoleon said there's two kinds of war. with the sword and the pen. He said oftentimes, or most times, the pen wins over the sword. And he was a great general. In other words, the word. Asymmetric is that we don't have what they do, but we're very confident about it. Would anybody like to, number 4? Number 4.
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum.
Right, so.
So, how does this, the Islamic movement we're talking about, and some of the things we discussed this evening, how does this relate to the general masses? You know, the general masses of this time, how do we
Right.
relate that to the general masses?
Just like we were saying a little while ago, we're justified in going to every masjid and name calling and what's the names. Now, I got mine out with the one on the, I don't know if you ever saw it, but Khadijah had slipped up on me. She had punched me twice already and tore the shirt. I mean, real live attack. And I didn't have it on camera. The first time, it was in the kitchen. 2 of those times was in the kitchen. There's nobody. And everybody there is on 18. So ain't nobody gonna verify it. And the next time, person who was using my phone camera, Mukhtar stole my phone. When I set it down, he stole the phone. So I didn't have, the evidence that I had was the sound from the little, I'd always keep them. Sometimes I'd leave it on for 2 or 3 hours, and it was wonderful. We walk outside still talking, I got all of that. So I wanted something that was visible. So they was out in front of the school, so I just turned around and told them, y'all don't have no right to be here on this property, you know. So I'm just letting you know, you're not supposed to be here. We feed the people. I said, I don't care what you're doing, you don't have no right here. So I started taking a few pictures with my camera. Dear neighbor erased it. It's no problem. So I arranged it for this encounter at the masjid. The same time I was talking with you on the phone. Well, here they come. Did you see the one that there's an encounter in front of the masjid and
Yeah,
I'm calling them bitches and punks and stuff?
I did.
Okay, did you see Khadijah walk on the side of me and clip me physically?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I wanted. After she did that, well, thank you very much. They didn't know that's what I wanted. That whole thing is all I wanted. So we have been arranging this stuff all along. But they pinpoint accurate now. They know, oh, did he have this on that? Okay, let's break in and find out. So if I go run and I got something written down, then I got some paperwork, they'll just take all the paperwork and off they go with it. Wow. You know, no, they over and over again. So, how does this relate to everybody else though? We've mentioned people like Siraj Wahad, Zaid Shakir, and all of those people. Those people are a big harm to Islam. They are. They're deadly enemies to Islam. Okay. But, as of now, I think maybe we're trying to manage this like what we get from the Quran and Sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ Sometimes the Prophet, that Allah said, don't pray in that masjid, it's a masjid fitna. Da, 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 da. Sometimes Allah says, join the Jamaat, the Prophet, peace be upon him, join the big Jamaat, da, 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 da. Sometimes about leadership, it says, follow the Amir as long as he prays, right? It says it over and over again. But the one that I like from Sahih Muslim is the one I read a few months back, which said, down near the end, if you have to go out in the woods and eat grass, right, then that's what you do. Okay, we have all of these options. This is strange. We're focused, we're going straight ahead. But as we go, we want to choose our battles. And sometimes you want a bloody battle, right? And sometimes it's like what we was talking about the other day, blue ocean strategy. It's no blood in the water. So we're devising a general strategy where we cause the less disenfranchisement with the Muslim Ummah. That's what I'm trying to say. Because in the old days, for instance, if you would have said Imam Muhammad Muhammad is crazy, okay, that means when his followers hear that, I don't care how right you are, you're that they're not going to.
You finished.
You finished. Basically, it's the same with all the people. Because see, the people know people different than how you know them. See, Siraj don't treat the people like us. If those people are at some meeting, oh, what would you like to say? We have a meeting with them when Manna is forming. Zayd is here, Siraj is here, and the other crew, and they all, so Siraj turns it, well, Imam Zayd, I'll be willing to give you bay'ah, allegiance, da 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 da, and they just passing this stuff back and forth. Hamza Yusuf is over there talking about, well, the earth rotates 20 degrees on its axis, which it does. I said, now this has a lot to do with Islam. But I will not be able to, because of my situation with his sheikh, to take allegiance to an organization. They revamped everything for Zayd. You know what I was doing? I got something to say. They wouldn't acknowledge nothing I had to say. I was glad. Because now I see where they fully coming from. I would have never went to those meetings except Imam Jamil asked me. He said, yeah, man, why don't you go on? I said, Hassan Bagby and that crew, come on, man. I said, University of Cairo, American University of Cairo.
Don't forget, man, not only raising your hand and was not acknowledged in your own masjid. I want to make that very clear.
Yes.
I've never seen anybody disrespect somebody or try to disrespect somebody in their own masjid, because that's not Islamic adab.
Of course.
Not that that has anything to do with
Okay,
it, but...
no, but remember, we could have stopped any of the people. Ain't none of the guys tough. I mean, like, when Zayd said something at the University of California, he says, well, the Islamic movement is not on the job training. He's talking about us, you know, and then he talked about Imam Malik and all, they had to learn this and that. I totally disagree with it, but for those times for friendship, not to confuse the people, because see, when the people see us go at it, all they're going to see is black people can't get along. And remember, they treat those people different than they treat us. So when you say, when somebody leave here and they go sit out at Dar al-Hijra like, oh, somebody, they don't say I was abused in Masjid al-Islam, but they sit there like it. And so the people automatically, what does that mean, oh, Imam Musa do something to y'all? You know, that's what they do. Okay. So they have difference. They treat each other, they take all of the people that don't know, they take them to dinner, they invite them out, they do all of that stuff. They pray together, they do all that. They try to cut our throat. So if we tell the people, these people are cutthroats, man. They are cutthroats of the lowest caliber. Astaghfirullah. First thing they say, astaghfirullah. That's their view. It ain't the view now. And we've held on, this war at home, so long that everybody manifests itself. Abdul-Malik manifests itself. Even Zayd a little bit, not enough, but they know something's going on. Because you can't be in so good a friendship. How is everybody else in love with each other and nobody wants to talk to us? What do we do to people? This is a good question. What have we done to anybody? That everybody loves each other and they're welcome, but don't nobody want to talk to us about nothing. No ice cream cone, nothing, nada.
That's because of the truth. See, I had a conversation, to be brief, with my sister the other day. So I was telling her about, Hillary, some of the stuff Hillary was doing. So my sister said, I didn't know that. She said, that's really depressing. She said, sometimes people don't want to hear the truth.
That's right.
So I told her, I said, well, I got the hint. I said, this is the last time I'm going to tell you anything. You know what I mean? Because she said some people, although it's not really some people, it's most people, do not want to hear the truth. And that's all we're doing is speaking truth, man. And nobody has nothing personal against Siraj, Zayd, none of that stuff. Because I've seen you in their company. You treat them always well. But the people don't want to hear that truth, man. That truth, it ain't no joke.
We'll move toward a close on this anecdote. Maybe just one more quick breather. I'm originally from Arkansas. At one family reunion, I was loading up on Bill. And all of my relatives that are a little older than me, I was a bad little kid. They're not house Negroes, but they're educated, and they just school teachers, stuff like that. I'm talking about Bill and Hillary. Boy, don't you know we had our family reunion at the State House? They did. You know how Negroid Bill is. My family. And they was low. I said, okay, that's it. I ain't got nothing. Bill's fine with me, There's no sense, like you say, people don't want to hear it. There's no sense. You got to be very patient. Let me just, this last one deals with Stalingrad to Oakland. And I'll close with that part. What does Stalingrad to Oakland mean? I've mentioned this a year or two ago. That's, we have a whole big CD, an hour and a half long. In 1941, in 1939, Germany signed a non-aggression pact with the Soviet Union, with Stalin. But by 1941, Hitler, except for the UK, is for the United Kingdom, he's a master of Europe. So he turns on the Russians, and it's called Operation Barbarossa. Boy, this is one of the biggest operations, and for a while, the most successful military operation in history. And they swooped into Russia and just kept on rolling. Their Panzer Division and tanks and all that, and the steppes, the big grasslands of Russia, They just swooped across it. And their main idea was they try to get Moscow if they could, but they would turn right and they would go to the oil fields in the Caucasus. But they get to Stalingrad, it's now called Volgograd, on the Volga River. Did anybody see the movie Enemy at the Gate? It was about snipers in Russia. Oh, it's a good movie. If you can get it on video, it's good. In fact, I might hustle one up. It's Enemy at the Gate. It's about Stalingrad. When they got to Stalingrad, the Germans and the Russians lost over 1 million men. And it turned into a stalemate. A sniper, this is a big industrial city. It's all destroyed and bombed. The Air Force, the Luftwaffe, was very effective. It just bombed the whole city. It's all rubble. Okay, now what happens? Those great tanks, that's great out on the open and maneuvering, they can't go down the street without stopping. And when they stop, the Russians can hit them. You know what I mean? So, and also the sniping, 5, 6, 7-story buildings is up. The tank cannot shoot up. Shoot out a little ways, but it can't shoot up there and get them people. So, the point I'm making was everything that was a benefit for the German army before it hit Stalingrad turned into a noose around its own neck. That was a permanent, it wasn't Midway and all that. The turning point of World War II was Stalingrad. Was in the winter of 1942, going into, winter of 42. It destroyed the whole German morale. Hitler told the people, you cannot, you know his famous stuff, fight to the last man. Same thing got Napoleon, the Russian winter. Good God Almighty. Cars won't run, tanks can't move, nothing, the cold winter. When they had them bottled up at Stalingrad, trying to take that, the Russians brought 1 million men up secretly and went about 100 miles below them, surrounded them. They captured 91,000 Germans, only 6,000 got back to Germany. They died in the cold, and you know, they didn't kill 20 million Russians on the way there. Good God Almighty. And Russians are shooting their own troops too, because they have one gun. Say it's 5 of us, okay, you go out and shoot till you get killed and another guy takes your gun. That's the way they did. But they had so many people. The thousands of miles from Poland and all that, the Germans come in, scorched earth policy. They just burned everything. They took all the factories, put them on trains, and took them back 2,000 miles. Now, Russia is 8 time zones. So they did, the Germans, like the Japanese, was done by the Chinese. Give up land and people for time. They both got plenty of people. So they let small Germany come in and take over. Now you're in trouble, right? They let Japan come into China. Chinese did the same thing, moved all their stuff back beyond the Japanese, right? We did the same thing in Oakland. Oakland was a turning point. I don't know if you can feel it or not, but Oakland the last few years was the turning point. turning point in strategy, turning point in attitude, turning point in everything. Everything that they used against us became a hindrance. Because now we done engineered this battle, buddy. We have engineered this battle. We got you on camera. We got you on sound. Nobody knows when you say when we would have those big meetings. Remember we had one big meeting, and remember the toilets wouldn't flush and all that? That might have been the same one. They just sabotage. Sabotage. Remember we was down there the next day and the 20-ounce bottle top from pops up, you know. Okay. Whether somebody put it there to pop up to let us know, or whether that was down, it don't make no difference. We snaked it out, and that's fine. But everybody had to go next door to use the restroom, and all the people were in their 40s and 50s and 60s, so they got to urinate all the time. Okay, we tell the people all that stuff, they don't see that. They don't see that. But now, I close with this. From Stalingrad to Oakland. 2 years ago, that became our theme. And it is up to today. Because Stalingrad was the turning point, and all the weapons that they had that was effective before are ineffective now. Everything. Everything. Who wouldn't get mad if they take $100,000 out of your account? Who wouldn't be mad? Anybody would be furious, right? Huh? We'll assume when I get back, when we get ready. Because we're changing the battle. Not only that, but Allah helped us to get back on our feet and launch a counteroffensive equipped lightly or heavily. So we actually, and not in bad shape. That's the reason I ain't no hurry to sell the cars out there. Because let them sit there and let people see. You thought you was taking our money? Well, we gotta have some money. There's cars. We can't show you all of the money we got, but we got enough. You know what I mean? From nothing, starting from nothing. Didn't go dig up nothing, didn't go nowhere. Just allow that. So that is the boost, the confidence, the maturity in everything we needed to build. See, we're building now. We're going to build huge, effective institutions right now. That's what each person involved will have a job description. And a few of them, not us of course, will have salaries. We have to pay people. We keep them as long as we like. But because we know what to do, we do that. If somebody don't do it, it makes no difference whether you're the police or not. They don't know. We're sorry. You know, that's it. I mean, we just can't do it. We love everybody, you know, okay? Any games people play, we're sorry. We can't do it right now. We got too many lives depend on all of this. When it's our life only, we could stall, we could do anything we want. But the less effective we are during these future periods, the more people are harmed, the more people die, the more of everything. So I'll close with this. This national liberation move is not only for us here, but that's why you see people drifting in from overseas and all of that. They're smelling what the environment is. They haven't matured enough. You know, we tell them, no, we expect, if you want to visit, you know, we expect at least a certain thing, you know. We don't, you know, like, I will finally close. But if you don't tell people something, sometimes they think they're getting away with it. Abdul-Malik is notorious. And my neighbor, they're notorious. If you don't tell them, I see that, what you're doing, they think they're getting away with it, no matter how stupid or hilarious. I can't tell them, I would be talking all day. Don't move your finger. Don't do this. That's all I would be doing. So, I just have to use it as a trap. They think they got away with that, therefore we'll do this over here. I wanted to see how closely aligned are some of the Iranians with this fitna stuff that's going on. So I would tell my neighbor some exact stuff, and one of the Iranian leaders would regurgitate it back to me. So, I mean, you gotta have tests, you know. You shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. I said, well, how the hell do you think I'm gonna find out how everybody's connected? You know? It's too simple. It's too simple. But if they want to be simple, it's okay. But it's past that type of thing now. We have to not alienate people, but we have to move up to a bigger level. The big multi-billion dollar, you know, America is our responsibility. Nobody else is going to do it. CARE's not going to do it. Chiefs people not going to do it. Nobody. Nobody's even thinking about doing it.
Nope.
Nobody's even thinking about how America is on its own. It can do what it wants. That's jive. We ain't putting up with that. You gonna straighten up, Sam. We're gonna try to help you straighten up. But those days are over. So we'd like to close with walas, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walas, inna al-insana lafi khusr. Illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat. Wa tawasaw bil haqq. Wa tawasaw bis sabr. Okay.